Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the podcast from the Nepali Diaspora Network at nepalidiaspora.net. We are designed to keep busy Nepalis all around the world, informed on happenings in Nepal. And this is a special edition.
Yeah.
We like to call it The Deep Dive because essentially what we do is we take a stack of sources and we kind of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge for our listeners.
Exactly.
So that no matter how busy you are, you can still keep up on what's happening back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, we're going to be tackling a collection of recent news and reports from various Nepali sources.
Okay.
Covering everything from the economy to politics to cultural events.
Sounds good.
So get ready to find out why Nepal's internet took a nap.
Oh.
What's got politicians in a deadlock.
Okay.
And why Everest climbers might need to start making more friends.
Interesting.
First up, the Nepali rupee.
Yes.
It's been on a wild ride lately.
It has.
Against the U.S. dollar.
Yes.
What's going on with that?
So the Nepali rupee hit a record low recently.
Really?
Trading at over 141 rupees to the dollar.
Wow.
This is largely due to the Indian rupee, to which the Nepali rupee is pegged, also weakening. And then the U.S. dollar is strengthening globally.
So it's kind of a double whammy.
Exactly, a double whammy.
For Nepal. But what does this actually mean for people in Nepal?
So it makes imports more expensive.
Okay.
Nepal relies heavily on imports for things like fuel, food, and medicine. So those are all going to cost more in Nepali rupees.
So essentially everything's getting pricier except maybe those amazing Nepalese handicrafts you were thinking about buying.
Haha. Well, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, we are looking at the potential for higher inflation.
Oh, no.
In January alone, inflation was already at 5.41%.
Wow.
So this weakening rupee is only going to make things worse.
Right.
And for the government, they're facing a bigger burden when it comes to repaying foreign loans, most of which are in U.S. dollars.
Right, of course.
So there are calls for policy measures to stabilize the economy, boost domestic production, manage inflation, and strengthen foreign reserves.
That makes sense. But it's not all doom and gloom, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, there's got to be some potential upsides to a weaker rupee, right?
Yeah, a weaker rupee could actually benefit remittance inflows.
Okay.
So Nepalis working abroad, sending home money.
Right.
That's now worth more in Nepali rupees.
So that's good news for families.
Exactly.
Who rely on those remittances.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
And then also, certain exports might become more competitive.
Okay.
They're effectively cheaper on the international market.
Right.
And that could be a boon for industries like handicrafts, textiles, and tea.
So not a completely one-sided situation.
Right, exactly.
So now let's talk about something that probably hit a little closer to home.
Okay.
For many Nepalis recently.
Yeah.
That nationwide internet outage.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine, it's Sunday evening, you're settling in, maybe you're about to catch up on your favorite show.
Yeah.
And suddenly, no internet.
Right.
It's like the whole country collectively groaned.
I think so.
At that point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a minor blip.
No.
This was a full-blown nationwide outage that lasted for hours.
Yeah, for hours. And
the culprit...
Unpaid bill.
Unpaid bill.
Seems like it.
Seriously.
Yeah. Reports suggest that the government failed to pay dues to Airtel.
Wow.
The Indian company that provides the majority of bandwidth.
Okay.
To Nepali internet service providers.
So it's like forgetting to pay your internet bill.
Right.
But on a national scale.
Exactly, yeah.
That's surprising to say the least.
It is, it is.
What I think is so fascinating about this is that it exposes this deeper issue, which is Nepal's reliance on a single foreign provider for internet bandwidth.
Yeah, Airtel supplies about 80% of it.
80%?
80%. So it leaves the country with very limited alternatives.
So when Airtel sneezes, Nepal's internet catches a cold.
Pretty much.
And this isn't even the first time something like this has happened.
Right. Last year, a similar outage occurred due to financial disputes.
Right.
So it really raises the question,
Yeah.
what steps can be taken to make Nepal's digital infrastructure more robust and resilient?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Especially in today's world where everything from businesses to education relies on a stable internet connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
This outage must have caused quite a stir.
Oh, it did. Major ISPs like WorldLink, CG, and VNA, they were all affected.
Wow.
And people had to rely on mobile data.
Right.
which isn't always a reliable, affordable option.
It's almost ironic, isn't it, that while the government is aiming to expand 4G and even introduce 5G in the Kathmandu Valley, the country is struggling with just like basic internet connectivity.
Basic internet, yeah.
It does highlight a certain disconnect.
Yeah, it does.
And this kind of leads us into the political landscape, which is just as turbulent as the internet situation seems to be. There's a whole lot of drama brewing in Parliament right now with 6 key ordinances at the center of it all. These ordinances, which are essentially laws passed by the government without going through the regular parliamentary process, have sparked a lot of controversy. And the Prime Minister's attempt to table these ordinances in Parliament failed because they lacked the necessary majority in the National Assembly. The opposition parties are arguing that these ordinances are being used to sidestep proper parliamentary procedures, and the public is becoming increasingly frustrated with the slow pace of Parliament and the lack of progress on important issues.
I can see that.
It's a classic case of political gridlock.
It is.
So who holds the key to breaking this stalemate?
Well, it seems like the Janata Samajwadi Party Nepal, or JSK Nepal, is the kingmaker in this situation. They have 3 members in the National Assembly, and their votes could swing the balance in favor of either the government or the opposition. They've expressed some reservations about the ordinances, so their decision will be crucial.
Well, talk about being in the hot seat.
They are, yeah.
So with the economy in flux, the internet on shaky ground and political tensions running high, it's safe to say that things are pretty lively in Nepal right now.
Yeah, they are. Never a dull moment.
What else is happening that our listeners should know about?
Well, while all this is unfolding, there are some really interesting developments happening in the realm of culture and heritage. Nepal is taking its first steps towards recognizing intangible cultural heritage.
Intangible cultural heritage.
Yes.
That sounds pretty complex.
It is. It's essentially about preserving the living traditions and practices that are passed down through generations.
I see.
So think oral traditions, performing arts, rituals, festivals, traditional knowledge about nature, even craft skills.
Wow.
These are all part of Nepal's rich cultural tapestry.
So it's about protecting the heart and soul of Nepali culture.
Exactly.
The things that make it unique. What's being done to actually achieve this?
So the Ministry of Culture, Tourism, and Civil Aviation has stepped up. They issued a new procedure for recognizing these intangible heritages.
I see.
And now communities and groups can apply.
Oh, that's interesting.
To have their traditions and practices considered.
It's like creating this national treasure chest of cultural heritage.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And speaking of treasures, there's a push to get the iconic Budhantul Kamta Temple recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Ah, the temple with the stunning statue of Lord Vishnu reclining on a bed of snakes.
That's the one.
That's incredible.
It is. And the Budhantul Kamta municipality is really diligently gathering evidence and preparing the necessary documentation to submit a formal nomination to UNESCO.
Fingers crossed they're successful.
I hope so.
Adding another World Heritage Site to Nepal's list would be such an honor.
It would.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another iconic part of Nepal, Mount Everest. It seems like there are some significant changes happening there as well.
There are. Nepal has officially banned solo expeditions on Everest.
Wow.
As well as all peaks above 8,000 meters.
That's a bold move.
It is.
What prompted this decision?
Well, safety concerns are paramount.
Right.
Solo expeditions are inherently riskier.
Of course.
If something goes wrong.
Yeah.
There's no one to help.
Makes sense.
And it puts a huge strain on rescue teams who often have to risk their own lives to help climbers in distress.
Yeah, Everest is already challenging enough.
Oh, for sure.
Without attempting it alone.
Yeah.
So it seems like teamwork is the new motto for Everest expeditions.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Are there any other?
So new regulations state that for expeditions on peaks above 8,000 meters, there must be at least one guide for every 2 climbers.
I see.
And for other mountains, there needs to be at least one guide per group.
Okay, so no more lone wolves on Everest.
No more lone wolves.
But on a lighter note, at least this encourages climbers to build stronger bonds.
Right.
And rely on each other.
For sure.
Any other noteworthy changes?
Yes. The government also increased royalty fees for climbers.
Okay.
For foreigners attempting Everest from the south side. During the spring season, the fee has gone up from $11,000 to $15,000 per person.
Wow, that's quite a price hike.
It is.
But I suppose it's all about striking a balance between generating revenue and ensuring the safety and sustainability of the mountain.
Exactly. And these new regulations also address concerns like waste management.
Okay.
Climbers are now required to bring back all their waste.
Wow. All of it.
Even human waste to base camp for proper disposal.
Wow.
And they even have to carry biodegradable bags for collecting waste higher up on the mountain.
So it sounds like it's really all about responsible tourism.
It is.
Making sure that Everest remains accessible for generations to come.
For sure.
Now let's come back down to earth, literally.
Okay.
And talk about a group that's been making their voices heard right here in Kathmandu.
You're talking about the tenant farmers from the Dang district.
Yes.
They've been protesting.
Right.
Demanding ownership of the land they've been cultivating for generations.
It seems like such a complex land ownership issue.
It is.
With deep historical roots.
Yeah.
These farmers have been tilling land owned by the Swargadwari Ashram Trust, a revered Hindu shrine. And they've been working under a tenant system. But now they're demanding legal recognition of their ownership rights.
Exactly.
It's understandable why they feel such a strong connection to the land.
Yeah, I mean, they've been cultivating it for generations.
What's the government's take on this?
Well, it's a sensitive issue.
Right.
The Swargadwari Ashram holds deep religious and cultural significance.
Right, of course.
And the government's kind of in this tricky position trying to balance the interests of the ashram with the rights of these farmers.
It's a classic David versus Goliath situation.
It is.
With these farmers fighting for their livelihood and heritage against a really powerful institution.
Right.
What are they hoping to achieve?
Well, they're calling for a new law, specifically a Guthi Act.
Okay.
That would address land ownership issues for tenant farmers across the country.
Wow.
Their struggle really shines a light on this systemic problem faced by many tenant farmers throughout Nepal.
It's inspiring to see them using their voices to advocate for change. Not just for themselves, but for a whole community of farmers facing these similar challenges.
Yeah.
It really brings us back to the core of what we do here at the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Connecting the diaspora to the heartbeat of Nepal. Even when those heartbeats are a little tumultuous.
Yeah, you said it.
And speaking of the diaspora, let's shift our focus to the economic lifeline.
Yes.
That many families rely on remittances. How are those figures looking?
Well, the latest figures show that Nepal received 763 billion rupees.
Okay.
In remittances during the first 6 months of the current fiscal year.
Okay.
That's a 4.1% increase.
Right.
Compared to the same period last year.
So remittances are still flowing in,
yes,
which is good news. But I'm curious, is this increase keeping pace with previous trends?
That's where things get a bit interesting.
Okay.
Last year, during the same period, remittance inflows had surged by a massive 22.2%.
Wow.
So while 4.1% growth is positive,
right,
it's definitely a slower pace than what we saw before.
I see. What do you think is causing this slowdown?
Well, there are likely several factors at play.
Okay.
The global economy is facing some uncertainties,
right,
which could be impacting the earning potential of Nepalis working abroad.
It really makes you realize how interconnected everything is.
Yeah.
You know, events happening thousands of miles away can directly impact the livelihood of families back in Nepal.
Absolutely. It highlights the complexities of the global economy.
Right.
And there's another trend worth noting.
Okay.
The number of Nepalis seeking work abroad continues to rise.
That's concerning.
It is.
Do we know how many people are looking for opportunities overseas?
So over 230,000 individuals received first-time approvals for foreign employment.
Okay.
In the first 6 months of this fiscal year, that's an 11.7% increase compared to the previous year.
Okay.
And over 162,000 people renewed their permits for working abroad, which is a 21.4 jump.
Wow, those are significant increases.
Are.
It seems like despite the slowdown in remittance growth, the desire to seek opportunities abroad remains strong.
It does, and it reflects this complex interplay of push and pull factors.
Right.
So on one hand, you have the lack of sufficient job opportunities within Nepal,
Right.
which is pushing people to look elsewhere.
Makes sense.
And then on the other hand, you have the allure of higher wages
Right.
and a potentially better life abroad.
Of course.
Pulling them towards those opportunities.
It's a bittersweet reality, isn't it?
It is.
Remittances are vital to Nepal's economy. They support countless families, but they also highlight this urgent need to create more jobs and opportunities within the country itself.
Exactly. It's a challenge that requires a multifaceted approach.
Right.
Addressing both the economic realities within Nepal and the factors driving outward migration.
It's fascinating stuff. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From a fluctuating economy and internet hiccups to political maneuvering and social shifts.
Yeah.
It's clear that Nepal is a country in constant motion.
It is, yeah.
What strikes me is the resilience and the dynamism of the Nepali people.
It's inspiring.
Despite facing all these challenges.
Yeah.
You know, there's a spirit of innovation and a determination to preserve their unique cultural heritage.
Exactly.
As we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to ponder?
I think it's this. Nepal is at a pivotal point.
Okay.
The decisions made today will shape its future.
Right.
Engaging in these conversations, staying informed about the issues, and understanding the complexities is crucial for the Nepali diaspora.
Beautifully put, and that's precisely what we aim to do here at The Deep Dive.
We do.
Brought to you by the Nepali Diaspora Network at nepalidiaspora.net.
That's right.
We want to empower you with the knowledge and insights that you need to stay connected to Nepal and contribute to its future.
Exactly.
So we encourage you to visit nepalidiaspora.net for more information.
Yes.
And to share your thoughts on these important issues.
Please do.
Your voice matters.
It does.
A huge thank you to everyone who joined us.
Yes, thank you.
For this deep dive into the heart of Nepal. We'll be back next week with more insights and perspectives.
We will.
Until then, stay curious.
Yes.
Stay connected.
Yes.
And stay engaged.